Everybody's having convos over COVID. Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Convos over COVID. That's a show that we're doing with me, Brian Hank, your host, and talking to some of my favorite people in the world. Unfortunately, one of my favorite people in the world is on the other side of the world, locked in. Hello, Katharyn Henson. It's great to have you on. We're going to find out all of your things, but thank you so much for taking the time to do the show with us.
I love that you're like taking the time as if anybody has anything else.
I also, as I said, the show with us, I made it seem like there's a staff here. And
yeah, I cleared my schedule. I'm not getting paid enough. I'll tell you that much right now to be on this show.
I'll Venmo you.
I did it a favor.
Oh my God. So this is the fourth episode we did, but you have very unique circumstances, and share as much as you want. I'm probably not even going to ask that many questions, but just in case people don't know, you are a comic, a stand-up comedian out of New York City. You're originally from Arizona, correct?
Reno.
Originally from Reno.
Yeah.
Stand up in New York City. I'm a huge fan of yours. I only have comedians on who I genuinely like their set. So if you have messaged me and haven't heard back yet, you now know how I feel about your stand up. But you are currently in Australia. What brought you to the other hemisphere?
So I was originally coming here to participate in the now canceled Melbourne Comedy Festival and the Sydney Comedy Festival, in addition to, I know it's so funny, I came here at the beginning of March because I was going to be touring in Sydney initially, and that poorly. Like I had set up a tour with like kind of like a tour manager, and I ended up losing money. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like a rite of passage in comedy. Losing money in every country seems to be something you get to do at least once.
Yeah.
So I was already sort of like fucking Australia, right? Like, and also the accommodation that had been set up for me was infested with cockroaches. And the people I was living with were like, no, listen, Sydney just has roaches. And I'm like, I come from New York. Like, don't talk to me about roaches. Everyone I know is a cockroach, you know? Like, so this isn't a Sydney thing. This is like, you have a roach problem. So
you're weirdly bragging about how infested the city is. You're like, no.
I'm like, have you heard of New York? The only city in the world? No. And so I ended up setting up like some dates at the Adelaide Fringe, just kind of to get out of that situation for a little bit. And it was at that time that I saw that things were really like kicking off all over the world. You know, like I was keeping an eye on things. I'm not like stupid, but here, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to talk with you because I'm a huge fan and you're a very fun person, and I wanted to hear what you thought about all of this, but also I wanted to get the gauge of how things are being handled in Australia. You know, we're so centered on how things are going in America and the city. I really wanted to, how are they handling it? Have they locked down quickly? Is it a little loose?
So it was at that time. So I was at the Fringe. So my boyfriend is also a comic, and he was flying to do the Melbourne Comedy Festival as well. And so it was during the last few days of the Adelaide Fringe, which I think was like March 15th, 14th, 15th, that I was like looking at everything going on. And he was in London at the time. And I was like, look, like we had a phone call, and I was like, I think things are about to be bad. And in Australia, people were like going around like it was nothing. Like the Fringe was packed. It was crazy. Like, but I'm like watching everything, and I'm thinking, dude, I'm pretty sure he was supposed to fly to Melbourne on March 23rd. I was like, so maybe it wasn't the 16th. I think it was like the 11th or something. And basically I was like, look, we have a couple choices. Like I either try to change my flight and go to London, or I go to New York. But I was like, but I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I don't think those are the places to be right now. And I don't know what's going to happen, but it seemed to be like New York was really starting to get fucked up. London, they hadn't done anything yet. He was like, look, it's getting weird, but nothing locked down. I was like, I think what we need to do, since he already had a plane ticket out here, I was like, we change your flight to a week earlier, and we go to Melbourne and we stay in the accommodation we had sorted for the festival. Because I was also looking at the exchange rate of like American dollars and pounds versus the Australian dollar. And I don't know if you've looked at any of that recently. I don't know why you would.
I mean, I'm
like,
always checking in every morning to see what the rates are between.
Yeah, but it's an American dollar is worth, like, when I last looked at it, 55 Australian cents.
Oh,
so the money that I have in American money pounds is worth more here. So I was like, look, I think our the London and America are like fucking up. I was like, I think we should maybe try to ride it out in Australia. His brother's in Perth. So I was like, let's see what happens. Now, obviously,
This portion of the show is brought to you by Australian dollars. It's like American dollars, but colorful and don't feature pictures of slave owners. Australian money.
What has been the hardest part of lockdown for you?
I mean, okay, so like I want to preface this by saying I understand there are people dying, people in financial ruin, people whose lives has completely had an upheaval. So like with that said, this is my journey. It was like around the time they closed the state borders, because like, you know, when I came up with this idea to get this RV, I was like, I would never take the time off from stand up to do something like this. So maybe I can turn this into a positive.
Sure.
When they closed the state borders and we couldn't do that, it was really that day. That was the first day when I like truly realized I was like, rest in peace, stand-up comedy. I mean, if and when it comes back, it's gonna be a while. And not if, but I mean when it does. And you know, it was like that day, and then the following days that I sort of realized I have had little, and I'm not even complaining because I've liked it like this, little else going on for the last few years. This is all I do. It's what makes me happy. It took my whole life to find this thing, which like I know little is violin, but like I started reverting back to how I was feeling before I found like a purpose. And it's like very purposeless, like not a lot of reason to get up and do anything, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like I'm just supposed to find a new dream overnight that I can do from my home. And again, I know everybody's going through a similar thing.
Yeah,
so
but
it's just my journey. But
well, I mean, it's very sweet of you to say. Everyone always prefaces with, I know people are dying and stuff like that. And that's true. And that's good that everyone understands the reality of it. But it's okay. And part of the show also is for people to tune in and be okay with feeling certain ways. And also, you know, it's not that, yeah, it's nice of you to say, but yeah.
I just want to acknowledge it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like at the end of, if I don't get sick and die, then I get to do comedy again one day. But it's also like, you know, like right now, the day I realized like my last show was my last show for a while, you know, I like cried. I was like, I should have done my sports rape bit. Like, you know, I was like sitting there thinking, like I would have done something else. Like, and just realizing it's going to be so long. Like it took my whole life to find this thing. And I'm like, how do I find a new hobby overnight? Something that I care about. Like I stopped drinking last May, mostly because like I was taking 30 days off, but then I just was like, you know what? I see the value of this. Like my stand-up improved. And like, this has been the first time since that happened where I'm like, fuck, I'm struggling to not like drink. Like I don't want to drink, but I do because I have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
You know? And and I got really sad. Like I don't want to watch my videos. Like I was like, I could caption an old tape and release a clip. I'm still kind of at a point where I'm like, I don't want to see it because there is no, I'll try it this way later. I can't even do it for free. And additionally, I was on an upswing. Like I was doing well. Like, you know, I know I haven't been in America, and I mean, outside of New York, I was like, oh, okay, I can like have a career doing this. And that's over. And now I can't even do it for free unless I do it on the internet, which I cannot bring myself to do. It's just not, I did one live show as a favor to somebody. They were like, they tagged me and they were like, will you do it? I was like, okay. And what that ended up doing, it was me having a public meltdown for 5 minutes. That's all it was. There was no stand up. There were no jokes, you know.
But I'm looking at my notes here about your stand up. I mean, that's what you do regardless. So I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, fair. I mean, and that's the thing too, is like people are like, well, then work on your joke. And there's shit I could do. I could like look at my tapes, I could work on my jokes, but all of my stand up is based on my life experience. Like every single thing I do, which a lot of people could be like that, but it's like working in a dungeon, smoking meth, having a yeast infection. Like these are all things that don't really happen when you're just sitting in a place doing nothing all the time, you know? And I'm starting to think of bits, but like, it's just not, you know, it's not the same when I'm not going out and doing anything, you know?
I gotcha. You, yeah, it does feel a little bit like a breakup. It feels like a high school breakup when your partner goes to a different college. There's nothing you can do. But right now people are like, well, you should get back out there dating. And you're kind of like, shut the fuck up. I don't want to date. I don't want to do, this is just, let me sit in this for a while.
Yeah.
What has been,
and like, I mean, I guess it's,
sorry, we're going to flip it. What has been the highlight of the quarantine? What has been the best part, the most fun part?
I mean, Tiger King, obviously. That's the only thing anybody.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what
I've never been more hyped to be an American. Okay, watching that, because so the guy I'm with, he's Irish. I'm actually in a very international house. We got an Irishman, an Englishman, and a French woman. And I'm like, this show is so American. Like, it will only happen in America. This shit is so out of control. It's like, and I was like, that's fucking America, baby. It's the one time I've been super proud. Like, and even though it's super fucked, but it's like something that fucked and weird can only take place and then be filmed and documented in America.
Okay. So I will be at, you heard it here first. If you haven't seen it yet, add it to your queue.
We'd like to take this time to thank our sponsor, Tiger King. Tiger King, what Mike Pence actually thinks homosexuality is. Tiger King.
Who's the first person you want to see when all this is said and done?
You know, if you can, this is so weird. I'm with that person, which I don't understand how I can still be willing to speak to this person after this many days of like 24/7 contact. I've never been this close to another person in my life. And it is weird. So it's like, I don't know if you're with anybody there. I'm like with my boyfriend. And everybody's losing it at different times. I was woken up today being told that today we're in the 90s. That's what's happening. We're in the 90s. And I've got like an Irish guy running around just being like, alrighty then. And he like,
oh wait, the temperature's not 90 degrees. It's 90s, no. The decade.
Yeah, we're in the 90s. Okay. He's like, where's my VHS copy of Friends? Like, he's just saying the shit. And then he came over to me and he was like pressing his mouth on my face, like without moving it. I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, there's no internet, so I don't know how to kiss. And then he like faked a seizure because he didn't know how to get out of the bit. And that was it. He like left the room. And I was like, this is
the man you're in love with.
Yeah. So it's like, so I mean, I guess like, I just want to, you know, be able to continue, you know, I mean, like I would say my mom, but like I'm so scared. My mom's 75. Like I thought about going to my mom, but I was like, I'm not going to my mom. And then once I am like safe enough to go to her house, I'll murder her because she drives me crazy and I love her, but I'll kill her, you know? Oh. So I just was like, it's safer for everybody.
Yeah, half of this show is just to show my mom that my room is clean, which is her number one fear, that my apartment's not clean. And every time she calls me, she assumes that I'm calling her from a hospital. So half of this show is to just not, so she thinks that I'm not dying.
My mom told me that she counts her toilet paper, so, you know.
Our final sponsor is the 90s. The 90s. It was really great. And you can tell because people won't shut the fuck up about it.
And this is a
I mean,
question.
yeah.
This is a question I've never asked anyone, but because you're in a different country, say that this is now where you have to start your new life. What are you doing in Australia? How are you doing your life differently?
Man, you know what I'm going to work? If I was in Australia, I'm going to work for this airline called Jetstar because they're a bunch of cocksuckers and they get to just act like cunts. I've never seen customer service people get to treat customers so horribly in my life. If I remained here, I'm working for Jetstar so I can be a fucking asshole to everybody I see because I think I'm going to be real bitter, not doing comedy. So I'm going to put on my little uniform and I'm going to be a bitch to everybody in my new life.
All right. Well, that's how we're going to end the episode. Katharyn, thank you so much for taking the time and using.
Can I plug my Instagram?
Oh, yes, of course. Okay, so wait, not just your Instagram, and I'm going to add everything, but what are some projects that you've had going that people can check you out on? Instagram and what else?
So my Instagram is that's spelled EW, girl, you nasty. I've been doing a podcast. It was like a travel comedy podcast with my boyfriend called This American Irish Life. And now it's just us being here. So that's fun. Yeah. And then do you know Megan Walsh?
Yes.
Megan Walsh and I, since last year, have had a podcast called Sowewhat Scientific, and we had an episode about coronavirus before it broke out. And
I didn't tell you this at the top of it. I love your show. Absolutely love it. It's such a funny combo. I love sciencey stuff. I love how you do it. It's a great show. I'm going to make sure that there's a link to a couple episodes at the bottom.
Nice. We're coming back, and we have the time. So, we had a couple little meltdowns, personal meltdowns, but,
Gotcha.
To be expected, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing the episode. As I always say at the end of every episode, this will not be forever, but it just feels that way. Katharyn, thank you so much for tuning, taking time and talking to us from all over on the other side of the world.
Thanks for having me. It's so good to see somebody I know.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of Convos over COVID. Check out our guest, Katharyn Henson, on all things social media. The links will be below. And we will check in with her later to make sure and see part 2 if Katharyn can survive Australia.